So I'm with Ashraf Khoja, who's part of the logistics committee of the Global Sumud Flotilla, and with Nadir Nuri, who's an organizer, a key organizer of the Global Sumud Flotilla. And today we're going to talk about what you're really seeing on your screens, this enormous effort to try to break the siege on Gaza. Brother Ashraf and Nadir, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the Thinking Muslim.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair for inviting us on this platform.
Jazakallah khair, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, Brother Nadir, I want to come to you first. Just tell me what the idea is behind this Global Sumud Flotilla.
First of all, thanks also for having me on the show. A bit fanboying at the moment because I'm a keen person who watches your episodes, especially the one talking about the modern Salahuddin. Do we need it or not? And that is something that I think is closely related to what we are doing today, how we are combining the ummah, combining the people, combining the efforts of the people to go into one movement, to go into one effort to break the siege on Gaza. And we know what is happening in Gaza. We have been hearing about it for nearly 2 years. 60,000 people martyred, their children that are going hungry, there are people, mothers who have gone through Syria for giving babies without any anesthetics, and so on and so on. And it's such a long list that we have to ask ourselves today, the history that we are living inside it, and what we are seeing in front of our eyes is actually the second Nakba that is happening and that is not stopping. I think the people listening to Thinking Muslim are all people who have followed the Palestinian story, the Palestinian conflict for such a long time. And we have been thinking, when the Nakba happened in 1948, why did the Muslim countries not do anything? Why did the Arab countries stay idle? And now the same thing is happening in front of our eyes, and it's happening many times over. The Nakba happened, about 50,000 people died, was killed, and also about 600, 700,000 people were evacuated from their homes and were forced to move outside of their villages. The same thing is happening, but it's many, many times over. 60,000 people are martyred. Nearly 2 million people are displaced, and it's still going on. So history is asking us, why is this happening in our time, and what are we doing to change this? But Alhamdulillah, viewers of the Thinking Muslim, I think, is on the part of the people that is trying to do something, that is trying to make change. And the problem now that we are facing is change cannot be made because of the incompetence of the leaders of the countries and of the powers that are in motion that is stopping our aid and our funds from reaching inside of the Gaza Strip. So that's where the idea of the Global Sumud Flotilla came from. It started off with, I think, stories that can be told by Brother Ashraf, who experienced it, who tried to move and break the land borders and did not manage to do so, which created and caused this idea of the breaking of the siege through the sea corridor come into fruition. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but maybe we have to go back to the source and to the roots. What was done by our brothers in Tunisia, in Algeria and Libya, and how did they not manage to reach their end game of breaking the land siege? But they did manage to move the hearts of millions and move the hearts of these tens of thousands of people who are trying to find a new way to break this siege on the Gaza Strip.
Thank you very much. Ashraf, fill us in on the background to this Global Sumud Flotilla. What led you from different countries in the world? You're from Tunisia, and Brother Nadir is from Malaysia. What led you to come together in this global gathering in order to sail the seas and break this siege?
Thank you, Jalal. So it's very interesting. Everything starts from small initiatives and we always get bigger and bigger and bigger. So The Global Sumud Flotilla, as everyone knows, it's a global initiatives from 4 other global initiatives that have previously tried to break the siege on Gaza from different methods. So you have organizers from the Freedom Flotilla Coalition that have tried to attempt to break the siege by sea. You had the global movement to Gaza, which tried to break the siege on Gaza by going to Egypt through air. And then you had the Tunisian or the Maghreb, now Sumud Convoy, that tried to break the siege by land. And all these efforts, they've all tried from their own method, and none of them were obviously fully successful in reaching their objective, albeit they achieved other objectives, which we'll mention. But eventually, they all came together and decided, let's try to create another global initiatives where we're at the point in this time where activists from everywhere in the world, it doesn't matter what's your background, doesn't matter what's your religion, doesn't matter what's your race, Palestine has become a compass, it has become the main cause of this world, and everyone has decided to come together to go for this issue. And so for the Tunisian Sumud Convoy, when it first started, I think it started like, I think a month before it launched. And without getting into too many details, it was a small initiative. Even in the beginning, the main organizers, they were telling me, of course, I learned that later on, that they didn't even know whether they were going to leave from the Tunisian capital itself. But alhamdulillah, Allah opened the roads for them. We got to see the great unity when we were crossing through all the Tunisian cities, and then we crossed all the Libyan cities. And we had Algerians that came to Tunisia. We saw like the great unity of the Ummah that we always dream of. I feel like that was the first time I saw it firsthand. When you have like strangers from different countries, they stop you in the highway just to give you food, water. They tell you, please take it to Gaza. They give you money. The Libyans have been extremely generous in making sure that the Sumud convoy, gets to its goal. And I'm happy to talk about the experience even more, but I think the main point that I wanted to say now is that, just like Brother Nadir said, today the Muslims, they have a choice to make. It's like we saw it in the Nakba before, and now we're seeing it again. Today you have a choice to make. Are you going to be a simple observer to the events that are unfolding, or are you going to be active in the community, in the world, in the Ummah? And I feel like as a Muslim, this is not just like a humanitarian cause. For us, it's also it's a duty. It's a religious duty to help our brothers and sisters. And so I think that we've always had the self-defeatist mentality over the past decades, where we feel like we really can't do anything. Whatever we're going to do is not going to bring any fruits. It's not going to be beneficial. It won't be successful. Even a lot of my friends and some of my family members in the beginning, when we went to the Sumud Convoy, they told us, don't go. You're not going to make anything. But the beautiful thing about our religion is that, علينا السعي وليس النتيجة. For us, we're required. What is required from us is our efforts and not the results. So what we have to do is do our best, and then the results will be as Allah wills. So we will sail to Gaza, and then whether we get there or not, it depends on Allah's plans.
Brother Nadir, I think we can pick up on that point, a very good point that Ashraf just mentioned there about our efforts. Of course, there have been efforts in the past to break this siege, and these efforts have not completely been successful. In fact, they haven't broken the siege. What is it about this particular flotilla that you think is different to these past efforts? Like, what is it that you've added, you put in addition here to inshallah break this siege?
It's interesting to learn from the experience of the people who have done this type of mission before. And I think more or less the first mission started in 2008 when the siege happened on the Gaza Strip in 2007. And amazingly, the first attempts actually managed to reach the Gaza Strip. About 5 boats managed to reach the Gaza Strip. But after that, the Zionists learned and knew how to stop the ships, Other events happened. 2010 was the most prominent, when Mavi Marmara caused 10 people on board to get killed. And as you can see, lately, Hanzalah and also Madlil tried to get into the Gaza Strip. And what happened was they were intervention happened, and they were stopped by the Israelis. And that is the most usual thing that can happen in these types of missions, where the Israelis will board the ships, they will be deported, the people will be deported and sent back to their home countries, or put in prison for a while before they are also sent back to their home countries. So this is what we learned from the past. But what we are seeing right now is history in the making. What is unfolding in front of our eyes is something that has not happened before, because the maximum ships, as we said, is maybe 5, 6 ships that were done in the early days. And then other efforts that followed did not reach 10 ships, for example. But what we are doing is sending dozens and dozens of ships all at once from more than 50 countries that have been participating and organizing and have reached this fruitful mission. And other than those 50 countries, all countries, most of the countries in the world will also be participating by sending their delegations on the boats. So this is the first time this has been done. And that's the difference between what we are doing and what has been done in the past. Never before has this amount of ships been sent with the support of all these countries and tens of thousands of people who are trying to make this work, and inshallah it will work.
Inshallah ta'ala. And can you give us some numbers? How many ships are sailing, and how many countries, how many participants from how many countries are involved?
As of now, we have more than 80 ships that are sailing. Most of them are sailing from Tunisia and Spain. Others are sailing from other ports. And we have more than 1,000 people who are boarding these ships, and they come from more than 100 countries. Either they have funded the ships, or they have been an active part of organizing the ships, or the least they have done is to send a representative from their country to be on the ships. So this is a global wide effort, and it has not been done before. And that's why the chances of success is very high, inshallah.
Inshallah. But of course, we know that from past experience, the Israelis have often interceded and have actually created enormous challenges for any attempt, any project to break this siege. And do you expect? Yes, you've got numbers here, and that's mashallah a fantastic development. But do you expect there to be a very similar response from the Israelis, Brother Ashraf?
I think that we know what the Zionist entity is capable of, and we know that they have stopped previous attempts before. And I think it's very reasonable to expect that they will try again. I think that, as Brother Nadir has mentioned, this is going to be the largest civilian flotilla ever attempted. It's uncharted territory for everyone, for both us and them. So I think that even they're probably not sure what is their plan yet. I think that they're probably rattling their brains to try to figure out a plan. I think that we have put the different scenarios of what could potentially happen. The first scenario is obviously for them is the interception and them detaining the boats. The second scenario is obviously a bureaucratic defeat, which is either they stop us before we even launch the boats, or they do sabotages, as they've tried with Handala at one of their ports. The third scenario is obviously the riskier and more dangerous scenario, which is that if they see a large number of ships, they don't know how to deal with it, and they, I don't know how to say in English, but they will sink some ships. And obviously the fourth scenario, which is what we're all hoping for, is that we're going to get to Gaza, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's good. That's good. And what sort of organization has gone into this effort? Brother Nadir, in particular, you've been organizing with people in Malaysia and different parts of the world to bring this effort, this flotilla together. Just tell us the breadth of the work that you've been and your colleagues have been doing for the past weeks and months?
First of all, what we have been doing is just 1 month ago. It has not started more than that. And the Global Sumud Flotilla has crazily not happened or not been planned for so long. It has been only 1 month in the works. And that is the amazing thing, because we have provided a venue for the people to show their support, to show their anger and their sympathy for what is happening inside of the Gaza Strip. And for Sumud Nusantara itself, which controls the Southeast Asian and South Asian countries, collaborate with these countries, there has been mass movements of people, literally millions, who have supported this effort by holding campaigns in their own countries. On the 15th of August, we had mass events in countries that were not so much in support of Palestine. For example, Sri Lanka, which is a minority Muslim country, turned out in the thousands participating in demonstrations for the people of Palestine. We had the same event on the same day in Maldives. We had the same event in Nepal, in Indonesia, and we are moving towards Thailand before we have it in Malaysia as the peak and climax of these events. So actually what we have been doing, alhamdulillah, is not just talking about success of reaching the Gaza shores, but this movement itself is success in the making. Bringing these people back to know and read about what is happening inside of the Gaza Strip, bringing the masses to move and do something after 2 years of the genocide that has been happening there. That is something that is that can be applauded. And alhamdulillah, although we are very, very tired, but we see these things come into fruition in front of our eyes, and we are happy and proud that we are not staying silent.
Yeah, let's because there may be some Muslims who are pro-Palestinian, who are pro-Gaza, who may say that, look, this is it's fine, but it may sound to them to be a bit reckless, or it may seem like it's not well thought through. Like, how would you respond to those Muslims who've now resigned themselves to the and you find this, by the way, among some even Islamic religious commentators who argue that Gaza is now lost and there's very little we can do as ordinary citizens of this world, as ordinary people of this ummah, to break this siege. Ashraf, maybe you want to pick that up.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jalal. I think, that goes back to what I was saying, mentioning a bit earlier about, the self-defeatist mentality that we have. And like I said, when I was going on the Sumud convoy, a lot of friends, family, and others were telling us that, you're not going nowhere. There's a great risk of, not even making it through Libya. If you do in Egypt, you will always keep failing and failing and failing. And that's the narrative that we keep telling ourselves, because that is what we're used to. But we just have to keep trying. I think the beauty of, for me, from my perspective, from the Sumud convoy, one of the objectives it has achieved, even though it hasn't reached the Rafah border, is that it allowed the people to kind of take things into their own hands. We no longer rely on governments, institutions. I used to work with the UN. No international organizations, no institution, no leaders, no religious leaders who tell us, just they don't push us into action. And it has united people from all sorts, whether it's Muslims, or whether it's non-Muslims. That it's united everyone into action. I feel like we're the generation of action. We're no longer into talking and how do we do this, and okay, let's talk about ideas and planning. We're just into action. And the organizers, and I have to thank them from Sumud Convoy, despite all the challenges they've had, they've always kept going. Like the organizers from Libya, they kept telling them this will not happen, there's this issue, but they always kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Even when we got to Sirte and the crossing of Sirte, and we were besieged ourselves for 2 days, we were always resilient. We said, okay, we're not taking a step back. We're going to camp right here in the middle of the desert. Even when they threatened us with live shooting, we always stayed steadfast in front of dangers, because whatever we go through, whatever sacrifice, whatever the risks and dangers we face, is nothing compared to what people in Gaza are going through. And it's our duty to just keep trying. We have to keep trying. And like even one of the objectives that it has reached is that it's united, part of the Ummah, which is the North African Ummah, or specifically Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia, because we always used to be, separated. Even though we feel like we're one people, we were divided by lines, and that was the first time we felt that we are one. And for me, and I may have mentioned this, I don't know, but we felt like we are one Ummah. And I think that another objective that we achieved is that we broke the fear in our minds that we cannot do anything, because we're all capable of pushing change. It's a question of responsibility, and we're all capable of doing something. There's from people, the Sumud Convoy, who donated supplies. There's people who customized entire trucks with solar panels and chargers and gave it to us for free. There's a lot of people who gave things for free, and they said, please just take it to Gaza. There's an elderly man who gave his straw hat to one of the organizers, and he told them, please take this to Gaza. And I think that besides breaking that fear, the Sumud Convoy, it instilled belief that Palestine, which regardless that we're all in the MENA region, still feels far away in our minds prior to the Sumud Convoy. Whereas after the Sumud Convoy, now everyone in Algeria, Tunisia, Libya feels that, oh, I could just start my car and go to Gaza. And that was a whole new, different dynamic and reconfiguration of the brain, and empowers us to feel that we are actually capable. As to your questions, in the flotilla, obviously there are great risks that are in front of us. But also there's a lot of great work, as Nadir said, a lot of great work behind it to ensure the safety of the flotilla. And obviously we can't go through all of it, but there's been a lot of training that's been done to the participants when it comes to non-violence training, so that when we're intercepted, we don't risk any lethal casualties or any unfortunate lethal consequences. There's a lot of legal training that we're going through. There's a lot of sailing training that we go through. There's a lot of things that are prepared beforehand, even in the safety of the boats, the equipments, the sailing path that we're taking. So there's a lot of things that we're doing behind the scenes to ensure that this flotilla is safe. But even if we don't achieve full 100% safety measures, and because when you're facing the Zionist entity, you can never reach 100%. There's always the risk and dangers. You still have to go through it and attempt to break the siege. And we always have to keep going. And I think one of the best things about Sumud Convoy and the other initiatives is that it's given these normal, everyday people, doctors, teachers, lawyers, journalists, to come together and organize on their own. Even the funding that we take from Global Sumud Flotilla doesn't come from associations, organizations, government. It's most of it comes from the people. The people are the ones who are funding it. The people are the ones who are working on it. The people are the ones who are organizing it. Nothing has been done at this scale, at least from what I know, from civilian population. And I think it's a great exercise that we have done, and we will keep doing this in other future initiatives. Obviously, if we made it this time and we broke the siege of Gaza and established humanitarian corridor, there will still be other initiatives. And if we don't make it, there will still be another initiative. The Zionist entity needs to know we're gonna come no matter what. You'll stop us this time, or the next time we'll try again, and inshallah we won't stop until we reach our goal.
And Ashraf, you mentioned there, but one of the aims is to create a permanent humanitarian corridor. How will that be achieved? Explain the rationale behind that.
So, as we know, the siege, we can break the siege from two sides, really. You can either is from the land crossings or from the sea. The land crossing, obviously, as we know from previous experience from our land convoy and from the global movement, the Gaza's attempt, it's much tougher because it's controlled through the Egyptian borders, right? when we come to the sea, Israel, no matter what they say, they are really against international law. So the Zionist entity through the sea, what they're doing is an illegal blockade, and they have no legitimate international law backing their actions. And so our goal here is to establish a humanitarian corridor from the sea, which is through international waters, and then the shores of Gaza. And we're hoping that if we establish a humanitarian corridor, then aid can come from everywhere in the world directly to Gaza. And that's kind of the idea behind it. I'm not sure if Nadir, you want to emphasize on that.
Yeah, and Nadir, I mean, building on that, why is it that governments have failed to do this so far? What is stopping these governments, our governments in the Muslim world, from sending humanitarian aid via the sea to Gaza?
First of all, responding a bit about the question you asked Brother Ashraf earlier, we have to know that when we are looking at these efforts from an eagle view, we can see all the negative things that is happening. But when we are working on the ground, we know that these efforts actually bear fruit. For example, Mavi Mamara, although 10 people were martyred, managed to open the borders. The Sumud Maghreb convoy, which happened, even though was stopped by Egypt, managed to force the Egyptians to open the borders, even though it was not announced to the news. And that is what we are trying to achieve. And as you said earlier, what is happening now is not just about breaking the borders, it's about uniting the Ummah, uniting the people, and saying that this will never happen again. Alhamdulillah, what we are trying to do, as we know, the Israelis, they are, I've been living in Gaza. We know that during normal times, they tend to put their warships about 12 nautical miles outside of the Gaza shores. That's where the international waters start. But during the wars, the ships come closer and become nearly about 6 nautical miles to the Gaza shores, and you can actually see the ships from the shores, which means that all the fishing boats, for example, they cannot go out to sea. They cannot go out more than 12 nautical miles, and they will be sent back by the Israeli ships, either by taking their boats or by killing the fishermen on board. So that has been happening outside of the war. And inside of the war, of course, the grip is tighter on the Gaza Strip, and governments cannot enter inside of in Gaza through the sea. So we know the state of the Ummah today. We know how strategically Israel has been planning and has managed to take a hold of these countries, especially those that are around Palestine. We don't have to mention about the Camp David Accords or about the Wadi Araba dealings that have been done with those countries and so and so. But that is the state that we are facing today. These countries, they are taking so much of their thrones, they are taking so much of their seats that every step that they want to take, they are thinking, is this good for me? Is this good for my country? They are not thinking of the Ummah. So that's why we have to put things inside our own hands. We take action by ourselves. We have nothing to lose except our dignity if we do not act today and if we do not act out.
And Ashraf, really a personal question for you. You're going to be on these ships. Like, why? Why do you do this? Like, what is the motivation that makes you think that, you're a former employee at the United Nations, you've worked in NGOs. Like, why have you taken it upon yourself to put yourself in harm's way?
I don't really think of it as in harm's way. I just think of it as what's right. I feel like, part of the reasons I used to work at the UN initially was because I wanted to do good in the world. And this is just another way of doing it. I obviously, after October 7th, I've lost belief in what the UN can do. I still believe a lot in what the UN can do in humanitarian efforts, but I believe that all of that is more treating a wound and not treating the source of the disease. And here, the biggest source of the disease that we are facing today is the Zionist entity. And we have to face that head on. And when I left the UN, and I left it just a few months ago, I did not have any plan in mind. SubhanAllah, I just, I prayed Salat al-Istikhara and I said, I'm going to leave. I'm going back to Tunis. And as soon as I got to Tunis, the Sumud convoy happened. I participated in it. And luckily now I'm in the logistical committee for the flotilla. And there's a lot of even friends and family that tell me, why do you take this risk? Like when we were in CERT, they threatened us with live shooting. We could have died. They kidnapped us. They confiscated some of our passports, our phones, and the flotilla. The risks are even crazier, and the dangers are more real because you're facing the true enemy directly. I think here, there's a lady in the Sumud convoy that said something that really, it expressed what we all felt, which is that in the past 2 years since October 7th, we've done everything we can. We've protested, we've boycotted, we've posted on social media, any initiatives that we could try to come up with, we did. But when we went on the Sumud convoy, it felt more that we were healing ourselves rather than we were helping the Palestinians, because obviously we knew that the likelihood of getting there was very low, but at least we've reduced that frustration that's been in our hearts for the past 2 years where we feel we are powerless. One of the main reasons I feel like I go is because, one, this is a responsibility as a human. This is a duty as a Muslim. This is my responsibility as a human towards other humans, but it's even a bigger responsibility as a Muslim, because the reason we are here on this earth is to create a good world, for everyone. And we cannot stand by watching genocides happen, whether it was for Palestine or for other, and there are other conflicts in the world that we will still need to get to. But right now, we've all realized, I think collectively as a human species, that a lot of the bad that is happening, whether in the Middle East and Europe and the US, it all boils down to this one central entity that is at the heart of all these issues. And for me, like I said, I don't know if you caught the part about talking about the women from Sumud Convoy, but I feel like, this is healing us. The more we do this effort, we even feel better, because we're like, at least the day I die, when I meet my creator, I want to say that I've done everything in my power. At least I've done everything, and I will no longer be frustrated, because now, like Brother Nadir said, it's a lot of work, and not a lot of sleep. And we're working very hard, but honestly, I feel good in this tiredness, because at least I'm releasing all this frustration out, and I'm putting it in the right channel energy. And honestly, I would love for everyone in the Muslim Ummah to do this, because we're 2 billion people. If half of us, just for example, donates $100, that's 100 billion people. If we all work together like we're working right now on the Global Sumud Flotilla, imagine the things that we can create. And I feel like today we have to be active in creating a better world, whether it's these initiatives or other initiatives. And I also do want to say, it's like the people who are going on the boats, they're not the only ones that are part of this initiative. Everyone can play a role and feel as if they are on the boat. Whoever stays, for example, on land and organizes a rally in support of this event, he, for me, is as if he's part of the boat. The one who's posting something on social media, he is part of the boat. The one who has donated even a small amount, that's part of the... You can do anything, just do whatever you can. That is the only ask, is do whatever you can to support this initiative and the next and the next, and we have to keep going, because I feel like there is no other outcome. Like, the conflict will end one day, and I believe that truth and justice will prevail. And the question is, are we going to be part of that process, or are we going to be bystanders?
Jazakallah khair. And Brother Nadir, you've lived in Gaza, and you've met with the people. What do you think the people of Gaza are what is their state of mind, or what do they think about the Muslim Ummah and our lack of inaction? You've got relations, you've spoken to people in Gaza. What's the message you're hearing from them?
Although we always hear and see from the Gaza people that they are posting on the social media that Allah is who is left for us, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. The Ummah has disappointed us. We cannot hope for anything from the people of the world anymore. But although we hear all these statements, I tend to send pictures of me giving lectures to my family of what we are doing in the freedom in the Gaza flotilla efforts. I send them the news that is covered by Al Jazeera and those other channels, and they straighten up and they say, "Ya Allah, someone is still looking out for us. Someone is still standing in solidarity for us. There are still people who have the conscience to move and do something for the people of Gaza," and that is what pushes us and shows us to keep on moving, because we know that although we may not be able to reach Gaza, but the idea of moving and doing something and not standing still, that has been giving hope to the people of Gaza. And you know how the people of Gaza think, been staying there for 10 years, and they tend to think like this, the mindset that is very, very strong. The essence of Sumud itself, which Sumud is not sabr. It's different from sabr. Sabr is when you be patient, you accept what Allah has given you, and you stay put. But Sumud is sabr, staying put and taking action. And that is what the people of Gaza are doing. When their schools are bombed, universities are bombed, we get proposals from them wanting to open online universities. When their mosques are bombed, they still ask us for carpets to be put under the rubble so that they can pray during Jum'ah. When their homes are bombed, they still do not want to leave their homes, and they put cloths and plastic mats over their heads so that they can still stay inside those broken down homes. That's the spirit of Sumud. That's the spirit of resilience, and that is what the people of Gaza is trying to teach us. We know that they are hearing us, we know that they are looking at us, and we know that they are still hoping that we move to help them, and that is what we are trying to do, and we will not let them down.
Brother Ashraf, Brother Nadir, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe and allow you to break this siege, inshallah, and give salam to our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for all your efforts and the time you have given to this really noble cause. Jazakallah khair.
Thanks for having us.
Please remember to subscribe to our social media and YouTube channels, and head over to our website thinkingmuslim.com to sign up to my weekly newsletter. Jazakallah khair.